Good day to you. I'm Danilo Evangelista, and welcome to today's tropical weather outlook for August 11th, 2026. Today we are continuing to watch our wave in the eastern Atlantic, which is now at a high chance of development according to the National Hurricane Center, and we are watching Invest 93 in the Pacific as well, which is increasingly looking like it could be a direct threat to Hawaii, according to all the latest model guidance and everything that we have available, which we will go over in today's video. So lots to go over today, as always, and let's get started. First off, by taking a look at the tropical weather bulletin according to the National Hurricane Center in the Atlantic, as we start off with every single video. And we still have 3 disturbances out there. Obviously, the main one, disturbance number 1, being our eastern Atlantic tropical wave here, which is now up to a 70% chance of development in terms of chances that this could potentially go on to at least become a tropical depression. And the National Hurricane Center explicitly states that in their, description graphic on the bulletin here. Tropical depression will likely form, and I definitely think so, given the way that this is developing now. And if this goes on to develop and at least become a depression, I think it could also become a named storm as well. And if this does become a named storm, the next name on the list of the hurricane season in the Atlantic is Cristobal. I believe it's Cristobal. Some people say Cristobal. The pronunciation sometimes with these names in the Atlantic tend to get a little bit weird, and a lot of people have their own different ways of saying it, but I say Cristobal, and that is the next name on the list for the Atlantic basin. And then we have 2 other disturbances beside that, one of them being the other tropical wave that we were watching, and recon was scheduled for this wave this past weekend if it did go on to become anything interesting, but now the chance of that is basically 0. The National Hurricane Center is saying nothing is going to come out of this wave anymore, tropical development-wise, which is obviously good news for those in the islands, although they might still have to watch this wave here in the eastern Atlantic. But nothing much else is going to happen besides potentially bringing some shower and thunderstorm activity to the southern Caribbean islands, which I know you guys will definitely welcome, so hopefully you guys enjoy that. And of course, our other disturbance here in the subtropics, only at a 10% chance right now, and probably doesn't have too much time left in the tank for it to be able to really do much. Although I have seen some people, in certain circles that I've been in today, comment that this area here is kind of looking a little bit interesting. And from time to time, we have these random low pressures that suddenly spin up into quick tropical storms out in the open waters of the Atlantic. It's happened in multiple years in the past, and who knows, maybe there's still a chance that this might do it, but the chance is very unlikely for now. Moving on to the Pacific, where they also have their fair share of activity right now. First off, a disturbance here, medium chance of development up to a 60% right now. So this could potentially become a tropical system, but the main area we are watching is Invest 93C, which is at a 90% chance of development right now, so very, very likely that this is going to go on to develop, and we are especially watching this because this might be a direct threat to Hawaii, and as I've said before, the model guidance is increasingly becoming confident in that fact. There's still a lot of uncertainty right now, mainly because of how much time is left. Any impact to Hawaii that does happen is still very likely 5 or 6 days away. And in hurricane tracking, 5 or 6 days is a huge eternity. And the whole setup here with Invest 93C is still a little bit complicated. So in general, uncertainty remains, but you should know that if you're in the Hawaiian Islands, I would be keeping an eye out here on Invest 93C. Very closely, and the National Hurricane Center in their tropical weather bulletin, text here also mentions that as well. So if the big guys mention it, then you should absolutely be keeping a very close eye on it. And we will be focusing on Invest 93C here quite a bit throughout today's video. So with that being said, here's the satellite shot of what is happening across the Atlantic right now, and this also is a full globe satellite shot by windy.com, by the way, and it's a very nice satellite shot, and I do plan to use this a lot more But starting off in the Atlantic here, you could see we have our tropical waves right now. Obviously, with our Eastern Atlantic tropical wave here, which is doing pretty decently today. If only the satellite shot would load. You could see there's definitely some noticeable spin with it on the visible satellite right now. So maybe we already have the beginnings of a low-level center beginning to build. So that is definitely a sign that this is continuing to develop, and again, will probably become a tropical system here within the next few days, although convection is a little bit on the anemic side right now, and obviously, as I've mentioned before, we do have the threat, or the threat to it, obviously would not be a threat to us, because it would actually be good for us, but this does have the threat of dry air, which is lurking to the north, so from mainly Saharan air and all of that, which could potentially impede on development. So it's going to have to fight that off, but not doing too bad right now. Then we obviously have our other tropical wave here in the western MDR, and that continues to move on off very briskly to the west. Hopefully it'll bring some nice shower and thunderstorm activity here to the Caribbean. You know, you're getting kind of the perfect median, showers and thunderstorms, some gusty winds, but it doesn't have to be in the form of a tropical cyclone, which is obviously very good news again for those in the Lesser Antilles and the Southern Caribbean islands, but maybe the Northern Caribbean. We'll have to keep an eye out on this wave here in the Eastern MDR, and I'll show you why I say that in a little bit. The models have kind of shifted with what they show with this Eastern MDR wave, and in some ways it's good, but in others maybe might not be so good in terms of potentially seeing impacts in roughly about a week or so from this Eastern Atlantic wave here. But of course, we will see enough. And obviously, again, I will get to that later on. But these tropical waves, they just keep on coming off. You know, we already have another one here, which is just emerged off the coast of Africa. Another pretty nice, decent looking wave. And again, looking back towards Africa here, definitely more energy to come. So the African easterly wave train, definitely very ripe and very active right now, and this is probably going to continue and only get even more active as we get closer and closer to the peak of the hurricane season, which is literally just weeks away at this point. And then here's our subtropics disturbance, which is what the National Hurricane Center has highlighted up here, and there's definitely a decent bit of convective activity going on right now, and maybe some spin also happening there as well. So again, who knows? We might get another quick spin up here in the Atlantic, which will, you know, maybe this could end up stealing crystal ball in the end. You never know, but the National Hurricane Center has a low chance of development right now. So kind of just a cool feature to watch on satellite. And then moving on here into the Central Pacific and the Pacific Basin as a whole, you can see decent amount of convective activity occurring across the basin right now, but especially prominent in the Central Pacific here with this massive system, and that, of course, is Invest 93C here, and it is massive because it is embedded along the intertropical convergence zone here in the Central Pacific and the monsoon trough, so it's kind of all strung out right now. There's not necessarily one area of vorticity which is consolidated just yet, and obviously this does still make for uncertainty with what the future will be, especially when it comes to track, which will obviously be the main focus, especially if we're talking about a Hawaii threat. But I mean, it is definitely menacing looking, quite a bit of convective activity blowing up right now, and this is definitely something we will have to pay very close attention to over the next few days, as after all, the Hawaiian Islands could be in the line of fire. Taking a look at the vorticity map, though, focusing on the Atlantic right now, and interestingly enough, here in the Eastern MDR, you're starting to notice a decent amount of vorticity coming together here, seeing the wave concentrate a little bit more. It's still kind of embedded here within the intertropical convergence zone in the Atlantic, so it's kind of connected to these other pieces of energy here, but you're definitely starting to see more vorticity consolidate over one small area, and that is probably the biggest sign you need to look at, especially when it comes to tropical development. And obviously that's what vorticity shows us here. Vorticity, again, representing the spin and the cyclonic turning in the atmosphere, which is why we look at vorticity. So it is very interesting that you are starting to see that show up here in the eastern Atlantic. And then also with our tropical disturbance here, or our disturbance in the subtropics, some decent spin showing up as well, although maybe not as much because, this is a pretty small feature after all here in the subtropics. So maybe this does have, stronger vorticity, but it is a very small feature. But again, unlikely to develop at this time, although it is interesting to see. But you never know what could happen sometimes in the Atlantic. Just saying. But interestingly enough, too, Andy Hazelton talking about the Eastern Tropical Atlantic wave today, and he mentioned that there is some rotation associated with the wave in the Central Atlantic right now. But as I said before, and he also says as well, convection is anemic. And he does mention this by showing the ASCAT data from the wave here in the Eastern Atlantic. And this is basically kind of looking at how things are looking like on a visual surface level. And on the surface, you can see that the satellite is definitely showing the wind bars here turning. So there's definitely a circulation building, versus the vorticity map kind of, helps us get a look beneath the clouds, if you can kind of get the analogy that I'm making here, and show us what is happening below the surface, and kind of showing how the vorticity and the spin is actually concentrating. And both are definitely showing here that there is some sort of low-level center beginning to build. So the Eastern Atlantic tropical wave here continues to develop and come along nicely, and once again, more than likely, we probably will see a tropical system, maybe even a named storm of some sort in the Atlantic over the next few days. Moving on to the Pacific now, you can see here across the Pacific, quite a bit of vorticity present, and you can see that a lot of this vorticity here is connected and kind of strung together, and again, a lot of this is associated with the monsoon trough in the intertropical convergence zone, which is very active across the Pacific right now, and you can thank El Nino for that, but it is also helping give birth to what will probably be some tropical developments here over the next few days, and of course, that is Invest 93C, and you can very clearly see the vorticity that is associated with that, and it is very broad right now, again, because it's kind of embedded within this monsoon trough feature. And we're going to have to watch and see where exactly do we see the vorticity consolidate here over the next few days, because it kind of looks like there are multiple vorticity maximums right now, and that's what tends to happen here, especially when you have these very elongated features kind of embedded within a monsoon trough, and it takes a few days sometimes for these systems to fully consolidate, and that kind of creates model headaches, especially when it comes to track, and it's kind of unfortunate, and we're definitely going to have to keep a very close eye out on here, because again, we are talking about the Hawaiian Islands that might be under the direct line of fire. But taking a look at the model guidance today, maybe we do have a little bit better of an idea on what exactly could happen to Hawaii here. Taking a look at the 12Z model guidance, and surprisingly today, a lot of them are actually becoming a lot more solid on the idea of a direct impact to Hawaii, which, not a great thing for the islands, but a good thing in that you are starting to see more model confidence here, especially because if you look at a lot of these model tracks, they are, closer together. They're not kind of spread out like we see, these two, tracks here, kind of very far to the south compared to the rest of the model guidance envelope. You don't see all of these other model tracks here, like some all the way to the north, and then some maybe going over the islands, but then some also all the way to the south. So you don't see lots of uncertainty with the model guidance right now. So that tells us that there's definitely more certainty, growing for potential impact to the Hawaiian Islands. And again, obviously, the models will definitely change here over the next few days, because as you can see, when this does get close to Hawaii, we're roughly looking at, a time frame anywhere from around 5 to 6 days out. And as I've said before, 5 to 6 days is a very, very long time when it comes to hurricane tracking. So I, for sure, no doubt, do believe that there will be shifts here, maybe to the north, maybe to the south, with the model guidance over the next few days. But definitely more confidence here growing for Hawaii. And of course, those model shifts will all come from just exactly how does the vorticity consolidate here in the Pacific. Do we see the vorticity consolidate more towards the south? That might cause, a track shift to the south on a lot of the models, or do we see something consolidate more to the north? And obviously that'll also, instead cause a more northerly track. So lots to watch here when it comes to what is exactly going to happen with 93C over the next few days. But let's take a look at some of what the models are showing, because we do have them available, and they are our main forecasting tool. They are kind of our main source of how we are able to predict these storms. So with that being said, looking at the GFS here for the 12Z run, and let's see what it shows. And you can see, we do see a consolidating storm. Seems to kind of be a little bit more northerly weighted. So because of that, the GFS definitely does take a track, which goes a little bit more towards the north, but directly over the Hawaiian Islands, roughly as we get towards the end of the week. And it seems to happen roughly around Sunday when we do see direct impact. So that is one major global model, and the GFS is a global model and considered one of the most accurate models, which do show a direct impact to Hawaii. What about the Euro, on the other hand? Another reliable global model, and they too also showing a direct impact to Hawaii here within the next roughly 5 days or so, roughly happening Sunday morning or Sunday afternoon. And intensity-wise, you can't be so sure yet about what exactly is going to happen, although, both of the models here definitely indicate more than likely we probably will be dealing with a decent tropical storm, I'd imagine, maybe even a hurricane. Let me actually see how strong the GFS makes this. And 987 millibars, that could potentially be a hurricane here, headed towards Hawaii. But the probably most significant aspect of what the models are doing right now is the fact that you compare the European model here to what the GFS model shows. Both of them are very close together, and they both do have a direct hit on the Hawaiian Islands right now. So again, you are seeing that agreement in the models, which absolutely tells me that they are coming together around a potential solution, which means we can more confidently say, given that that solution is a potential direct hit on Hawaii, we can confidently say that Hawaii is looking increasingly likely that they will get a direct landfall. So lots to be watching here over the islands in the coming days. And again, we'll be monitoring these models to see whether or not they shift. If they wobble a little bit more towards the south, and maybe this will end up missing to the island just to the south, or missing just to the north. And even on a more smaller scale, it'll then eventually, once this gets closer in time, it'll then come down to which islands will be hit. Will it be more of these northern islands here, or could it potentially go a little bit more towards the south and impact directly the big island of Hawaii? So lots to be watching here over the next few days with Invest 93C, and we will definitely be keeping a very, very close eye here on how exactly things do develop. But for sure, the confidence is growing that we will see a direct impact to Hawaii, and that, I think, is very likely. And even if we don't see a direct impact to Hawaii, it's kind of hard for me to imagine, given where the models are all at this point, that we still won't at least see some impacts either way. So definitely a developing situation for Hawaii here that, once again, we will be continuing to monitor very closely here over the next few days. And then taking a look at the Atlantic as well, and seeing how things shake up there. The GFS obviously develops our 30-70 wave here in the Eastern Atlantic, 70% chance of development. And you can see here, there's definitely a storm that develops on the GFS. Looks like we start to see this really consolidate maybe as early as tomorrow, and then it'll intensify as it gradually moves on off to the west-northwest, but it probably does run into dry air and shear here, and the trades as well are very, very strong throughout the eastern Atlantic, and in general throughout the Atlantic right now, given just the kind of setup we have this year. So that will definitely kind of have a negative effect on this wave as well. And the GFS on the 12Z run kind of, begins to show those effects really taking the best of this wave as we get towards the end of the week here, as it starts to open back up potentially into a tropical wave from a tropical cyclone, especially as it approaches the Caribbean once we get towards the end of the week. And that's definitely, a symptom of a weaker storm, that the fact that this takes more of a southerly track here, but, the GFS is starting to potentially show that this, ends up going more towards the west-northwest and directly towards the northern islands. So we could still see impacts from that, from showers and thunderstorm activity here. And even the Euro is also showing that as well. They initially developed this, but this ends up staying pretty weak, and because of that, this ends up, moving towards and moving through the island. So that'll probably bring some impacts in the form of showers and thunderstorm activity here. But, very likely we're not going to deal with anything that is very strong, especially once this gets to the Caribbean here. If this especially takes a more southerly track like the GFS shows, you can bet that wind shear will absolutely rip this storm to shreds, and you probably won't have much of anything left to talk about with this storm, except for maybe some shower and thunderstorm activity that'll spread throughout the northern Caribbean islands here, which of course is definitely needed, and we absolutely hope that that is what happens, because again, lots of people in the Caribbean do need some rain right now, as you guys are dealing with a drought, and obviously that is happening because of El Nino after all, since it generally suppresses convective activity and tropical waves which do enter the Caribbean, so that reduces the amount of rainfall we see. So hopefully we see that, but of course, when it comes to tropical impacts, we could see some of that as well, especially for the northern islands. But either way, development of this system is still very likely here. And it's probably going to happen again, maybe within the next 1 to 2 days here, as this moves on off to the west-northwest in the Atlantic. And then interestingly enough, the GFS as well, also aggressive here with that other tropical wave, which is moving off of Africa right now. Let me go back to the satellite shot here. This wave here, maybe the GFS is trying to start to pick up on some energy here associated with this wave. I've seen some of the other models, and including some of the ensembles, begin to show some energy potentially follow right behind the wave here in the eastern Atlantic, and maybe try to spin up. But there's nothing set in stone right now, but interestingly enough that the GFS is trying to show something here on the 12Z run. So of course, we will see whether or not that might be potentially another signal to watch in the making, although, as of right now, nothing much is to be said about yet. We are still mainly focusing on the eastern Atlantic wave that is currently being monitored by the National Hurricane Center, which has a high chance of development right now. And once again, very likely I do think that that'll probably develop and become a named storm here within the next few days in the Atlantic. And of course, we also have Invest 93C, which is going to be an impact to Hawaii, very likely here in the coming days as well, which we will be keeping tabs on too, since it's very likely going to be a direct impact to land and to people. So lots to keep tabs here on the tropics for sure, and definitely lots to keep us busy here over this upcoming week when it comes to tropical tracking. So fasten your seatbelts, because it is definitely about to get crazy. And if you want to continue to stay tuned on these tropical updates and receive, more information throughout the week as things continue to develop, well, you come to the right place, especially if you haven't already done so yet. I would really appreciate if you like this video and subscribe to the channel, because again, we will continue to do videos throughout the week, updating you on what is happening in the tropics as we see development occur. And we might even do some live streams as well if things especially start to get spicy. And you know, sometimes I might even do live streams even if things don't get spicy, but I typically wait till things really start to heat up and we start to get land impacts and threats before I start doing live streams. So if you are interested in that, which we might again have this upcoming week, again, make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. And if you have subscribed to the channel, but you haven't already done this as well, make sure to click the notification bell so you can get videos whenever I upload them, down to the second I post them on YouTube. And follow me on Twitter as well, because I will be posting consistent updates throughout the day there too. Same name as I have on YouTube, at Danilo Evangelista, so I hope to see you on Twitter as well. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day today. Hope you guys, have a great one. Stay safe. Peace, love, and kindness to you all, and I'll be back with more tomorrow.